This video is about the sponsorship year and your responsibilities as sponsors. Sponsorship is a commitment to support the newcomers for their first year in Canada. Your responsibilities end 12 months after their arrival date. The sponsorship is a contract between IRCC, ORA, and your sponsor group. Even though there are many great things about Canada, coming here is not easy. And so the whole idea of the sponsorship program is that there be a safe and caring support system in place to help the newcomers overcome the challenges that are waiting for them here and to help them build their lives in this new community. Sponsorship is not about helping a newcomer until they don't need help anymore. Of course, one of the goals of the program is to support and promote their independence, but every person and family is different. And so there's no measuring stick that we can use to say at the end of the sponsorship period, everyone should be here or there, should speak English and have a job and feel at home in Canada, and so on. That is an unrealistic expectation. And so instead, we would encourage you to think about the sponsorship as an opportunity for a newcomer to get extra help for the first year and to make as much of an impact as possible on their life trajectory during that first year. When we submitted your application to IRCC, you or someone else in your group signed the sponsorship undertaking document. This is a government form that outlines your contractual obligations as sponsors. And these obligations are essentially reception, lodging, care, settlement assistance and support, and all of these responsibilities come with financial support obligations. And IRCC has very specific rules around minimum amounts of financial support that sponsored newcomers must receive from their sponsors during their sponsorship year. But this video is not going to get into financial support. ORA is your sponsorship agreement holder. We submitted this application to IRCC. We helped to prepare it, and we had to be confident of your group's ability to fulfill your obligations. After a newcomer arrives, our job changes a little bit, and we become responsible for making sure that the program requirements are met. In other words, we become responsible for making sure that the newcomers receive adequate support from their sponsors in line with the PSR program rules. So we will check in with you throughout the sponsorship to see how things are going. And we're also here if you need advice or information or guidance. We take ultimate responsibility for every application that is submitted under the umbrella of our agreement, and we act as a liaison between many constituent groups or sponsor groups and the Government of Canada. We are always available by phone or email and to arrange meetings as needed to support our sponsors. It is our job to give you the tools you need to plan, and it's your job to use them. So you're responsible for fulfilling all of the obligations that are outlined in the undertaking, but we break those down for you through the ORA settlement plan. We take those categories and we break them down into 65 plus tasks with important information about each one. And we need a draft of the settlement plan when we submit an application. And we need sponsor groups to go through the settlement plan in detail as they prepare for an arrival and write the name of the sponsor group member who will be responsible for that task into the plan, along with any notes or comments. And this is a tool for you to track your support to make sure that the newcomers are getting everything that they need. If you use this settlement plan, you will fulfill your responsibilities. We also have a handbook, which we give a copy of to all of our sponsors. And this is a 30-page booklet that includes information about all of your responsibilities in detail. And it also includes a lot of feedback that we've gathered from other groups over the years, over the decades, really. We also have a sponsor toolbox on our website where we keep all of our materials and documents that is available to all of our sponsors at any time. We also want you to think about the supports that you can't plan with a checklist, the things that are not so tangible, like providing emotional support and accompanying people through the transition of settling in a new country and all of the joys and challenges that come with that, helping to identify opportunities for them, helping them navigate a new system, new systems, advocating for them, and using your own personal connections for their benefit. IRCC tells us what the minimum requirements for sponsors are in a very quantitative way, so things that you can measure. But if you really want to do a good job of welcoming the newcomers that you're sponsoring, then you have to adapt your support to fit their needs and goals and priorities and interests because they are unique to them. Some tips that we would like to pass on from past sponsor groups: distribute responsibilities and really clarify roles and specific tasks. So use your settlement plan. We want to avoid a situation where one or two sponsor group members end up doing the vast majority of the work. There is a reason that a sponsor group is required. It could never be possible to fulfill all of these responsibilities as one individual. So you need to be a group, you need to support each other. We want to avoid one or two people burning out. We also strongly suggest that you keep meeting. You will find that many of the tasks on the settlement plan can be accomplished within a couple of months, but a sponsorship does not last only a couple of months. A sponsorship lasts 12 months. And so we want to avoid a situation where sponsor groups support fades away. Instead, it might be a good idea to sit down with the person that you've sponsored and say, okay, we're at the month 6 mark. We've done everything that the program requires us to do. So, how do you see yourself benefiting from our support in the months going forward? Part of your job is to make sure that they get access to all of the available services and benefits. And in order to do that, you need to get informed and you need to plan. You want to help identify the programs, the courses, the workshops, the organizations, the grants, the benefits that are out there. And we're lucky, we're not the first people to welcome refugee newcomers, but it does take a lot of navigation to identify what is worth pursuing and how to pursue those things. So, bridging that gap is part of your job as sponsors. Your job is to make sure that they have the tools, the information, and the support necessary to make their own decisions. You are not there to control them and make decisions about their lives. It is very important for sponsors and newcomers to understand that the newcomers have the right to self determination, and that is central to the sponsorship. Even though you are supporting them in all of these different ways, it doesn't mean that they are your children. It doesn't mean that you get to make their choices for them. Being a sponsor is not easy. You have to balance a lot of things. You want to avoid a relationship of dependence where they rely on you for everything because you want to be setting them up for long term self sufficiency. So you want to give them a strong start, but you have to do it in a way that sets them up for being independent when the sponsorship period is over. You want to make sure that their needs are met, but at the same time, you want to make sure that they will be able to support themselves when you are no longer there to support them because the sponsorship is temporary. So, for example, it might be nice to get them a super expensive apartment that costs $4,000 a month because your group was able to fundraise a lot of money. That way, they'll be very happy and comfortable when they arrive in Canada. But is it really in their best interest, or are you just setting them up for a shock once the sponsorship period is over? It might be easier for you to drive them to an appointment It takes more work to teach people how to use public transit so that they can get somewhere on their own. It might be easier for you to just pay their bills online, but they need eventually to know how to do those things themselves. So, we want you to always be thinking about the end of the sponsorship period and keeping that in mind as you provide support from the beginning of the sponsorship period. You're also balancing the ideal and the reality. There may be things that you'd like to do or provide that you can't because you're limited by what's out there. And sometimes we see that family members or friends who are also sponsors can have a hard time balancing that relationship they have with the people they've sponsored and these formal obligations that they have as sponsors. So these are things for you to keep in mind. Far too often, we see that newcomers experience a shock once the sponsorship period is over. So, your group needs to plan for the end of sponsorship transition and think about what that is going to look like for them to try to ease that shift as much as possible. If you think about the newcomers as a tabletop, at the beginning of the sponsorship year, your group members are like the legs that are holding that table up. One of the goals of the sponsorship period is to bring in as many other legs as possible. In other words, connect them with as many other sources of support as possible so that when the sponsorship period is over and your legs are removed, the table is still standing strong. Sponsorship is a big commitment, and to do it well requires organization and planning. But don't forget that by being part of this sponsorship, you are part of something incredible and something life changing. We often hear from sponsors about the unexpected positive impact that being part of the sponsorship had on their own lives. So enjoy being part of someone's new beginning. Enjoy helping someone make Canada their home. And don't forget to celebrate. Thank you for watching this video on the sponsorship year.